20 sci-fi movies so explicit they had to be recut for theaters. One of these movies was banned in its home country for almost 30 years by the request of its own director. Another lost footage so intense that some of it may be gone forever. Stick with me, because by the end of this list you'll never watch these films the same way again. Let's start with RoboCop from 1987. Paul Verhoeven's story of a slain police officer rebuilt as a cyborg looks like a straightforward action movie, but it hit a biting satire about corporate greed and media culture. The problem was its violence. Early cuts of the film were so brutal that ratings boards initially placed it in a category reserved for adult content. The studio sent it back for trims again and again, until it finally qualified for a normal theatrical release. Some of that missing footage has since resurfaced in home video versions. Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange from 1971 caused an uproar few films have matched. Its stylish, unsettling portrayal of violence disturbed audiences so deeply that after a wave of public backlash, Kubrick himself asked distributors to pull the film from circulation in the United Kingdom. It stayed effectively unavailable there for close to 3 decades, only returning to British screens after his death. The Man Who Fell to Earth gave David Bowie his first major film role in 1976. As an alien searching for a way to save his dying planet, Bowie's character slowly loses himself to human vice. Several countries trimmed its more mature scenes to make it accessible to younger science fiction fans, but the uncut version still built a devoted following over time. Flash Gordon, a 1974 spoof of the old Flash Gordon serials, leaned so hard into raunchy comedy that it landed in the most restrictive rating category from the start. Rather than cut it down, the filmmakers mostly kept their vision intact and accepted a limited theatrical run in specialty cinemas. It still built a cult audience thanks to its goofy practical effects. Barbarella turned Jane Fonda into a science fiction icon in 1968. Its psychedelic comic book-inspired visuals pushed boundaries that several conservative markets found too suggestive, leading to regional edits. Despite that, its bold visual style went on to influence fashion and pop culture for decades. David Cronenberg's Videodrome arrived in 1983 with body horror imagery so unsettling that both American and Canadian distributors worried it would receive the harshest possible rating. Several disturbing transformation sequences were shortened before release. Even trimmed, the film's ideas about media addiction feel eerily relevant today. Event Horizon from 1997 might be the most infamous of them all. Test audiences reacted so strongly to a flashback sequence depicting what happened to the ship's original crew that the studio cut large portions of it before release. Some of that footage was reportedly lost over the years, turning it into one of science fiction's great unsolved mysteries. John Carpenter's The Thing in 1982 pushed practical creature effects to their limit. The transformation scenes were so graphic that filmmakers had to soften several sequences to avoid the strictest rating available. It flopped on release, partly because it opened near a much gentler Alien movie, but decades later it's considered a masterpiece of practical effects. James Cameron's Aliens in 1986 packed so much intensity into its runtime that several scenes needed trimming to secure a wide release. Years later, Cameron restored much of that footage for a special edition, giving fans a chance to compare both versions side by side. Blade Runner, released in 1982, fought its battle behind the scenes rather than with censors. Studio executives worried audiences wouldn't connect with Ridley Scott's slow, ambiguous vision, so they forced in a narrator and a more hopeful ending. It took Scott over 15 years to finally release cuts that matched what he originally intended. Going back further, 1955's The Quarter-Mass Experiment deliberately swapped the E in experiment for an X to advertise its adult rating, a marketing trick many horror films of the era used with pride. Even so, some regional boards in Britain still demanded extra cuts before allowing it to screen. Death Race 2000, Roger Corman's 1975 satire about a violent televised cross-country race, mocked American entertainment culture with a level of graphic content that triggered pushback in numerous markets, forcing cuts in some regions. That controversy only fueled its rise to cult classic status. Logan's Run imagined a utopian society in 1976, where everyone is required to die at 30.